I understand if the attitudes needs to be changed and they take a while because I mean, imagine like just changing all that really wrong concept of what the illness is because we're not, making things up. We're not just because our blood tests are fine, we're not making things up. We're not exaggerating, which is in a condition that the more we do, the worse it gets.
Hello and welcome to the Disability Download, brought to you by Pan Disability Charity Leonard, Cheshire. On this podcast, we respond to current topics, share stories, and open up conversations about disability. Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Nick, and I'm your guest host for this month's episode. We speak to Mili, a young person with ME, a condition that is also known as chronic fatigue syndrome or CFS. Mili tells us about living with invisible disabilities, the challenges she faced, and crucially, how we can improve attitudes to people with invisible disabilities. So, let's get into the episode. I'm here with Mili. Welcome to the Disability Download, Mili. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Nick.
I'll start with some very easy questions. Where do you live now and where are you from originally?
So I'm originally from Argentina and I live in Liverpool, UK.
Cool, excellent. Can you tell me what your condition is and when it first started?
Sure. I have ME/CFS. Some people know it as chronic fatigue syndrome. I hate that name because it sounds very wishy-washy. And I had it since March 2020 when I caught a virus, which could have been COVID. I don't know. And since then, I've basically never recovered.
Right. And how did your condition affect you?
Well, it's hard to say because the answer will be, it affects everything because the issue with this condition is that it's not something that is either physical or mental. It just affects your whole body. So there's not a lot of understanding of how the actual illness works, which is an issue in itself. In short, how it affects me is it affects everything. It affects my energy levels, which is the most obvious because of the name, but it also affects me mentally and just has a lot of symptoms all over the body. It's not severe for everybody, but the more severe it gets, the more symptoms you will have, or the more severe those symptoms will be, and you will realize that it really does affect, your whole life. So I'm in a situation where I'm basically in bed all, if not most of the day. I can't work because, if you were just with a physical illness, you might be able to work, with your mind and lie in bed, but it's not really like that because when you push yourself physically or mentally or emotionally or anything you do beyond your limits, it affects your whole body. So you start feeling all the symptoms where you have, headaches, sore throats, muscle aches, just increased like fatigue, like exhaustion. So it's really just not a fun illness, to be honest.
Does it vary day to day?
It does, but if you're very good at pacing, which is the only thing that could be classed as some sort of management for the illness because there's no cure or treatment. But pacing is when you stay within your energy limits. So if you're very disciplined, you should be as stable as possible. The problem is when you have, I've been living on my own for a long time and my energy limits are very small. If you do too much on a day, just mentally or physically or emotionally, you just, go out of your limits. The next day or maybe for the next few days, you will feel worse. So that's basically what sets it apart from other, fatiguing conditions. That's the main point of focus.
What was the attitude of people towards your condition after your diagnosis?
Well, when I first got diagnosed, I wasn't feeling as well as I am now. So I think it's hard, and even to this day, for everybody to really understand because this is basically an invisible illness. And if you look at me, I seem fine. If I'm not having a terrible day, or if we're having a conversation that is not too long, you might not notice, my symptoms like brain fog and, things like pain and headaches. You can't really see those. So I think that, friends and family are maybe still getting used to the fact that I'm not the same person in the sense that I had to give up a lot of things that I used to enjoy because I simply can't do them anymore. And at first, for example, before my parents they live in Argentina, so they saw me, via webcam for like 2 years, and I told them all about what was going on. But I could tell it was kind of hard for them to wrap their heads around and learn the name of the illness, which is really hard. And now they know it better than me. But my mom would be like, "You don't need a wheelchair," things like that. And I don't think she had ill intentions. I think she's just, like I said, it's really hard to wrap your head around. Then they did come to, care for me because they noticed, like I said to them, like, look, I'm really, really just can't do this alone. So they came to the country for 6 months just to look after me. And that's where, we got the wheelchair and we did all those things. And I think that's where they can tell. So I know it's, the attitudes of people who don't see you every day or who see you at a distance might be, I don't want to say disbelief, but it might just be like hard for them to really understand what you're feeling, because you might seem fine or they might not see you at your worst. Because, when I talk to my friends, I do it when I'm feeling okay. And if I'm feeling completely rubbish and I'm sending an audio and I can't barely hold my phone, I'm probably not going to talk to them because I need my rest. So they don't see, that uglier side, or they don't see me in bed. They just, see a text message from me saying, "Hey, like I'm in a good mood, but my whole body is aching." So I think that is the main issue. All of us who are not really able to participate in society, the general public doesn't really see us unless we have milder symptoms where we can go out and do things. So that's why, it's not just a hidden disability. That's basically, the situation. So I understand why the attitudes to this illness is a bit, they might not be easy to understand.
And what about the attitudes of the medical profession?
When it comes to, doctors and all that, the problem is that this condition isn't diagnosed with any tests. There's nothing, there's no markers or anything. So there's a lot of disbelief when you're maybe not that sick. When you're told, like, "Oh, it's just your age," you get to be brushed off because you tell them your symptoms and they might not think it's a big deal, especially if you're a lot more able, if you're a lot milder. And the only way to actually diagnose it is to look at your symptoms. So you need a lot of months for doctors to be like, maybe this is not a good thing. And then you need, some tests to discard other fatiguing conditions, which is what I did to get my diagnosis. But even after 3 years of the condition, even after being diagnosed with 2 different specialists, if I go to a doctor now, I will still hear things like, "But you look okay, but you seem fine, your tests are fine," And I get it. Maybe they didn't even learn it in school when they were in medical school, because the condition hasn't been researched very well. But when you get comments like that, when you get a cardiologist, when I say, "Please, like my heart rate is so high, can you give me something?" And he tells you, "Oh, you're fit and healthy and you don't really need that wheelchair." It's so frustrating, because it's like, you're a doctor, you should be a bit more compassionate. If I'm telling you this and I have a diagnosis, make me fight to be believed, when this is what I experience every day. And just because I'm out of the house because I have to, it doesn't, mean that I'm not in bed 24/7, for days before and after me being here in this consultation. So it's really, really hard for that reason.
How do you think things can improve?
So I'm not really sure how, what the solution is. Probably some sort of, more awareness from doctors. I think it would be common sense, first of all, to like listen to us if we're telling you how we're feeling and not trying to minimize our symptoms or treat us as, as we're exaggerating. I understand if the attitudes needs to be changed and they take a while, because I mean, imagine like just changing all that really wrong concept of what the illness is, because we're not, making things up. We're not, just because our blood tests are fine, we're not making things up. We're not exaggerating, which is in a condition that the more we do, the worse it gets. When the best thing you can do is space, the best thing you can do is rest.
So you want better attitudes from the medical profession and less dismissal and more listening to patients. Would that be fair?
Yeah, and more research. I would add more research, which is only just starting. But I hope with COVID and everything, we will see more research as well.
Yes, of course. And what support are you receiving now?
So instead, what I did was just, I asked a friend if he knew somebody who could help me with like cleaning and changing bed sheets and things like that, which is something that I am too unwell to do. Last time I tried vacuuming, I pushed myself way too hard, and I ended up with a fever. It was really bad. So I am not doing that anymore. So I have, help like that just from friends who, can like help me with cleaning or help me with like small errands and things like that. So I'm really grateful for the people I have in my life who are really, really helpful. And also because, they get to adapt to me and it's more on my terms. But I understand that some people might need somebody to be with them like all day long or something like that. If I can have my parents soon, I will have them here, for as long as I can stay. And they're gonna help me with everything because when they're here, they just do everything. I just stay in bed, and then I just go to the toilet and back. That's all I do. And they, bring me food and things like that. And I have to worry about, getting groceries delivered. It's just so much effort.
How often are they able to come over?
My parents.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my dad has his own conditions, so he's now, going through some tests to see if he can try some pills to help him manage his condition. So as soon as he gets the all clear from his doctor, he's gonna be able to come. But because, we have Italian citizenship, they can only stay for like 6 months. So that's also a problem because they can't stay, indefinitely.
And what are your hopes for the future, for you and for how society responds to people with your condition?
Well, the first thing that I would like to see is just more research, more understanding of the illness, because I understand that everybody has a different approach or a different attitude to their own illnesses and disabilities. But I think that at least most of us would like to be cured, and that is not in any way, shape, or form a way of saying that we are ashamed or we should be embarrassed or angry about our conditions. But I'm sure everybody wants to be healthy as possible. So I think that more research is the main thing. I'm so happy to see more things being done. I submitted my spit sample to Decode Me, which is somebody who is doing the DNA sampling from a lot of ME patients just to see, if there's any genetics, behind it. Because again, there's not even like a proper diagnosis test. So that would make things so much easier as well. Even if they can't be like a complete cure, even if we can have some sort of management to make our lives easier, that would be amazing. And while we wait for that, yeah, of course, anything that could come from society, which, makes us a bit more comfortable if we're sharing our experiences or how we feel, not just to, look at the name and see chronic fatigue and be like, oh, you're just a bit tired, and I understand that that might be because of the name, it might be because of the lack of, discussion around the illness or the lack of research for so many years. And I know that being sick for only 3 years, I'm really lucky in that sense because there's been people who have been having to deal with this for decades. I think we are going in the right direction. That is really important. But I think that until we can, be understood, be less judged, and just, I think that the easiest way would be just to accept what we say. If we say that, we have all these symptoms and we still look fine, we're not making it up. And ask questions if you're curious or if you don't understand. And I also, sympathize with people who can't see, from the outside what it feels like, because I know that it's hard to see when somebody is, having pain or other symptoms that are invisible. But, just don't be, dismissive about it. That is the main thing, I think.
Have you got any advice for people with ME who might be newly diagnosed or just starting with ME?
Oh, thank you so much for that question, because I wish I've been advised when I first got diagnosed. So the first thing, and this might be a long answer, but the first thing is, if you're diagnosed with something else, like if you start feeling like there's something wrong after a virus, or even if you just feel like you have fatigue and neurological symptoms and, all these symptoms that don't make sense, don't brush them off, because I did that, and the condition gets worse the more you push yourself. The earlier you know that there's something wrong, just go to a doctor. And if they dismiss you, just try again, because there is something wrong. Don't let them tell you otherwise. Be aware that this is a condition that is diagnosed by symptoms and by discarding other conditions. So be as strict as possible, keeping track of everything you feel, because when you go to a doctor, the more you sound like you're another doctor and not a patient, the better your chances are that you're treated seriously. So be very careful about not letting people downplay your symptoms, and learn to pace. So learn to manage your energy, learn to figure out what makes things worse, and be very wary of your mental energy as well as your emotional energy. So you might say, like I did, I'll just lay on the couch all day and I'll be fine. But if you're, very stressed, or if you're very busy mentally, it's still not good for you. And do whatever you can to reach out to other people, because to me it was life saving, quite literally, just to go to support groups. I use a lot of like Facebook groups, and you see all these other people who are in your same situation, some better, some worse, and you start learning about from everybody else's experiences. So for example, I bought myself a Fitbit, which is like an activity tracker, so I could see like how many calories I used. And I went from feeling, I feel kind of worse today, I'm feeling kind of better, to like really know what was going on. But it took me months for me to get there. So if I had known like right at the start, I might not be as disabled as I am now. So I can't stress this enough. Just like, if you're suspecting it, just try to get the diagnosis. Don't let like a good day make you feel like you're making things up. I know it's a really long answer, but it's just something that I'm really passionate about. Even though I've been sick for only 3 years, everybody that I meet that is like a newbie, I'm like, no, I want to help you, because I've been through that and I am so close to severe now that I don't want anybody to go through that.
That makes sense, and thanks for that really useful advice for people. I'm sure they'll find that really helpful and really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So, thank you so much for your time, Mili, and happy birthday once again for yesterday. And
thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Some great advice there from Mili for people with invisible disabilities like her, and for wider society too. I really hope that the public and medical professionals take notice of her advice not to dismiss symptoms, and to listen really closely to the experiences of people with these conditions. Like Mili, I hope there is more research done into ME and other invisible disabilities. We'd love to know what you think. Get in touch by emailing us at disabilitydownload@leonardcheshire.org, or contacting us on Twitter or Instagram @LeonardCheshire. And if there's a guest you really want to hear, reach out and let us know. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the podcast. Thanks for listening. I'm Nick, and this has been the Disability Download.